Hey YouTubers, it's Dominique, and today is June 20th, 2019. We are about to attend Town Halls at We, a panel discussion on transportation and transportation equity here in Los Angeles. Should be an interesting panel. Let's see what they have to say.
We'll figure it out. We have brought together a fantastic panel to talk about not just how transportation works in Southern California, but also how we can achieve equitable access to a variety of forms of transportation. Because it's not just about trains or buses, it's about making sure that all of our citizens can get where they need to be, when they need to be there, and that is what creates a thriving economy. To moderate this conversation, I'd like to introduce the Urbanism editor of Kurt, Alissa Walker. Alissa and Nick, please come. Thank you for being here.
Hi everyone. I'm just gonna walk up this ramp very slowly. There's thank you so much for having us here today. We are a proud WeWork member. Kurt operates out of that. We work out of the Hollywood and Vine office, and we picked it because it was transit accessible. We all take metro or walk or bike to work, and we are steps from the Red Line station, so it's really good to see how much WeWork has really put thought into where they're locating. And they also did a study last year. Someone can maybe give me the information if I'm getting it wrong, but I believe that they said their members are taking transit and walking and biking at double the rate of the city of Los Angeles as a whole. And that says something, that says a lot to how this culture is being created and making sure that people have access to transportation, which I think is really cool. I am going to introduce our panelists. I'm going to have them come up this catwalk very slowly and join me to the side. I don't know, who wants to come up first? Coming up first, Karina. I'm not going to do a fashion show. These seats are really comfortable, so if we fall asleep, just... Alright, quickly, everyone just introduce yourselves. Give us your spiel.
Mic on? Alright. Thanks everyone for being here. WeWork for having us. Woo woo. My name is Karina Macias, and I am a transportation manager for Mayor Eric Garcetti. It's an honor to serve a fellow Angelino. I grew up in Boyle Heights. Many of you know it's been bisected by a number of freeways and has the busiest freeway interchange. And I work on a number of transportation initiatives, and all of them I infuse equity at the forefront, since I am the daughter of two beautiful and hardworking immigrant parents and know very well the struggle of accessing transportation in the city.
Hi. My name is Tamara. I'm with LA Metro. I'm in an office called the Office of Extraordinary Innovation. But sometimes when you ask our colleagues, they might consider us the Office of Extreme Irritation. And part of that is because our office is responsible for looking at how do we open the doors to new ideas that come into Metro. What we do very well as a public agency is to be able to do what we do in terms of running services every day, our buses, our trains, making sure that they come on time and that they serve the millions of people who ride our system every day, as well as all the other modes of transportation that we support through funding and through policy and all these technical assistance. But what we don't do very well as a public agency is looking at how do we adapt to the mobility needs of people and the consumer expectations that are constantly changing. And so my office becomes a test kitchen of how do we build the plane and fly it at the same time. And so that is part of what we do in the Office of Extraordinary Innovation.
Hello, I'm Eli Lipman, and thank you, first of all, to WeWork for hosting this, and for Ron Stone for putting this all together. Shout out to my colleague Gloria Ullman from Move LA. I work for Move LA. We're a transportation advocacy organization. We built a coalition in 2008 of environmental, labor, and business organizations to support major transportation investments. And we got really lucky in 2008 when we passed Measure R for transportation funding. And I see actually there's a couple of our board members here as well. Hi, Heather. And then we continued building that coalition. We added social justice, environmental justice groups, we added faith groups, we added disability rights and senior groups to build this really beautiful rainbow coalition. We worked to go back to the ballot again with the help of Mayor Garcetti and Metro to campaign for transportation funding measure M. Many of you hopefully voted for that. $120 billion over 40 years in transportation infrastructure investment in LA County. And so that we really work on that kind of piece. How do we fund all these big, incredible projects? I come from this from two perspectives, really. For me, my dad's a climate scientist, and so I think about the climate and how we're going to save the world from global warming. And then I come from the perspective of my 3 kids, which I know is just, there's a discord there, but I really think about what planet I'm going to leave for them.
Hi everyone, my name is Alfonso Directo. I'm a policy analyst over at Investing in Place. Investing in Place is a transportation advocacy nonprofit group here in LA. We push Metro and the City of LA to equitably invest transportation dollars to achieve equitable outcomes. My background, I'm a second generation Filipino American. I was raised in Long Beach and in Irvine. So born and raised in Southern California. I understand the changing dynamic of transportation in our region, and I'm excited to see the kind of changes that are happening, but I also am I'm mindful of like the kinds of people who may not be benefiting from the kinds of investments that we make if we keep the status quo. So I'm definitely excited to be part of this panel. Thank you for having us here.
Alright, I'm going to throw a little curveball here. We just didn't really talk about doing this, but I feel like I think we should open up this way because also there's not going to talk about it. But let's tell the story of how we got here today, and maybe an inequity that you could point out in the transportation system that we have built for ourselves. I'll go first. I was hit by a car when I was riding a jump bike on the way here. I was coming down 3rd. It's a very wide one-way street, and a car was pulling out of a garage. Didn't see me. That's a license plate mark you can see there. Didn't get hurt. Wasn't a big deal. The guy stopped, which was amazing. Wow, I know. Everybody's like, oh, that's the most amazing part. Gave me his card, but there's no safe place to ride. There's no people expecting you to ride, I think was the bigger thing. Even if there had been a painted bike lane, he didn't expect anyone to be there. No protection from vehicles that are maybe gonna get in your way. And I'm a mom too, I got 2 small kids, so when he came very slowly at me, he was going slow, and I knew I probably wasn't gonna get that hurt, but I didn't have that flash in my mind, and I was wearing a helmet. My mind was covered with a helmet. That this is maybe not the best way for a mom to be getting around without her kids. Is that like a horrible way to think about your life? I can't ride a bike because I'm too worried I'm gonna get hit by a car and not be able to take care of my kids. Super bummer of a story to start with. Maybe yours is better.
Mine does not get that better. Well, the way that I got here to this physical location, I took the 96 Metro bus, so shout out to Metro. But how I got in the transportation industry and practice of preaching for equitable outcomes through transportation investments was, I mentioned earlier that I grew up in the predominantly Latino neighborhood of Boyle Heights that had all these freeways. I went to an elementary school, a high school, a middle school and high school that were all next to freeways, and I never really thought about a built environment that wasn't next to a highway because that's all I knew. That's all I ever interacted with. Every street that I crossed, every bus route that I took at that age growing up kind of was freeway adjacent. And it wasn't until I went to UC Berkeley, where there aren't very many freeways around the campus, that I realized, wait, there aren't freeways all over the place. And I began asking myself, well, why was the freeway built where I grew up, and every institution and space and park that that I had access to. So that kind of drove me down the path of doing a little bit of LA urban history, and initially wanted to be an architect, and then landed on being a transportation planner and engineer. So 6 years into public service at this juncture, I have the honor and privilege of working for a transportation visionary, our mayor, Eric Garcetti, who's given me the space and really empowered all of our team, one of which is back there, David Villagarza, shout out to you, to kind of move forward the built environment that we inherited from generations past, and make improvements every single day.
So I'm going to start my story. Well, I took the train here today, but I'm going to start my story actually from how I got to America, which was swimming, boat, plane, and finally to San Jose. But ultimately, what I found was that what was so great about America is the fact that we are home to such a diverse population, and through that, how do we create a transportation system that is inclusive and that addresses the mobility needs of the diverse places that people come from and where they're going. And that is one of the great opportunities of being in at Metro, is to be able to do that every day. It's not always fast, but there is intention behind what we're trying to do, and I look forward to talking more about that.
I also took a bus and a train. It was interesting. I came from Westwood, and I looked at the traffic, and it was going to take me the exact same time if I were to drive versus taking transit, which is really interesting because most of the time we think of transit as something that's really slow, and in this case, it actually was faster. Now, the challenge and the reason why sometimes I might drive is because I got to get back home after this, and it's going to be late at night, it's going to be dark, so anyone heading to west on the 10 and want to give me a ride. I thought of a story when the Expo line was coming into our neighborhood. I used to live in Palms, which is a sort of a lower middle class neighborhood, and they were building a bicycle lane next to the Expo line. And there was this one section that they still haven't built. And actually, it's an interesting story. You were looking at that map today, and it's because of 5 homeowners along the Expo line who didn't want it there. And I went to the community meetings, and they fought it because they thought people were going to come on their bikes and steal their TVs. This is literally what somebody said in the meeting. And because that wasn't built, it was really unsafe for me and my kids in the trailer to actually get onto the nice part of the bike lane that was protected. And I felt safe on it. So I never really used it as much as I could. And I feel that speaks to sort of inequity, because that's such an important way for people to get around. And if they don't feel safe, they're not going to use it. The other so that's sort of like the local level perspective. The other perspective is really the strategic level. Pershing Square used to look like this. Does anyone remember what was here for years? It was just a parking lot right here.
There's a subway terminal.
It used to be, right underneath it, but for 10 years it was just a parking lot.
Now there's a subway tunnel that actually goes right underneath this building right.
And the old building over there. And so we're in this process right now with Metro called the Next Gen Bus Study that's looking at, we haven't changed our system in more than a generation, 20, 30, 25 years, right? And it's looking at where do we need better service? And we've seen these dramatic shifts in downtown where people live, where people work, and other places around the county. And so how are we going to address those shifts, and how are we going to do it in an equitable way so that people who rely, and this is a big sort of thing that we're looking at as lifeline versus lifestyle, right? Is public transportation a lifeline for you and your household, or is it a lifestyle like you use it occasionally when it's convenient? And so I think that's going to be a critical question when we're looking at rethinking our whole bus system, which people forget, rail is sexy, but buses carry over 70% of our total ridership. So it's an important skeleton and backbone of the whole system.
Cool. So I got here using my endowed feet. We walked here from our office, which is a few blocks away. Probably the most common form of transportation for most people is using your feet to walk someplace at some point in time for commute. I came, let's see, what was, and point out something inequitable. Well, I think one very large, high-level inequitable thing that many of us experience here in LA is a lack of choice, a lack of options to do anything but drive a vehicle to get places in a realistic time manner. I think the lack of choice is what we're really trying to address for people to be able to have choices that will allow them to walk places, like I was so fortunate to do to come here. To take the train and get to a grocery store or whatever in a decent amount of time. I think of inequity also from the perspective of a father. I'm a 1.5-year-old, and my wife and I like to go jogging on Saturday mornings. Where we live out in Westwood, the streets, sidewalks, are buckled in very many places, and pushing a stroller if we're walking over those is probably fine. But if we're going, any faster than 4 miles per hour, which is like average speed of walking, if we're going any faster than that, I'm going to be launching my child into the sky with this stroller, and that's not right. So we take an active little social justice, tactical urbanism, and we run in the street, and we make people slow down about this, we definitely take our liberties on that way. But I think the fact that we have choices, my wife and I, to drive or to take transit is definitely an injustice and an inequity that we live with here in LA as well. I want to recognize that that's not everybody's situation. That the fact that that we have income that we can use to buy a car is definitely something I'm privileged to experience. But the metro system is a lifeline for a lot of people, and how do we make the metro system not so burdensome for people? Because that is the key to, there's so many arguments. That's the key to economic prosperity. If you want to look at it from an economic angle, it's the key to a healthy lifestyle. If you want to look at the perspectives of somebody who has the ability to get people to walk and everything like that. So I think there's a lot of inequities. I just wanted to point out the one in which is the inequity of having to feel compelled to drive to many places.
That's great you brought up the issue of choice, and I think that's something that we need to kind of get out of the way. We all in this room had a choice to come here tonight. We didn't have to work late, we didn't have to pick up our kids, or we had someone to take care of our kids. We might have been lucky enough to work downtown and live somewhere that we can drop by here on our way to go somewhere. What's happening increasingly in the city is a shift to people having to buy or use cars who might have lived close to transit at one point but have to move further away because they can no longer afford to live near transit, or people moving into areas where they just think they have to buy a car even if they live near transit, and maybe they're from New York or something, or they just thought they had to buy a car when they moved here. So we've got these two things occurring in our city, and you've probably heard transit ridership is down, but also car ownership is up. We're adding cars at 4 times the rate that we were in the 1990s to this city. So it's not just that people aren't choosing to take transit for whatever reason, it's also that we are adding vehicles and vehicle miles to our streets at this astounding rate. And it's not like LA is that much of an anomaly. This is happening in a lot of other cities, except for Seattle. We can talk about that later. But let's talk about that issue to begin with, because really, if we are going to make sure, and there's been studies that have kind of posed this question to people, if we really want to make everybody be able to succeed, we have to give them access to transit. However, we can't build out the transit fast enough in a way to ensure that we can catch all the riders that are having to be pushed out of these areas. How do we address the problem of locating the transit closer to the people, or the people closer to the transit? That's a big one. It's the only problem we're going to have to solve tonight.
If only it were that easy. So, as you're right, transit ridership has been declining nationwide since 2014, and for a number of reasons. Partially, it has to do with this phenomenon where getting loans for cars is much easier, and many of them happen to be predatory. And unfortunately, that's kind of how our nation operates. It's a bit of a hyper-capitalist state at this juncture. But there are some things that we could do as transportation manager with the mayor's office, and that's look at where our highest ridership transit corridors and work with partners like all of you in the room. All of you are change makers if you choose to be such, and advocate for bus priority improvements and in conjunction with the transit expansion plan that Metro is leading with the help of a number of local stakeholders. So the answer to your question is a complicated one, because not only is it, are we being affected by congestion being caused by added cars on the road that then affect our bus service, but then we also have this humanitarian crisis at our front doors where many unsheltered folks take refuge in our public transit system, and that deters a number of our choice riders, quote unquote, although I like this lifestyle term, this transit as a lifestyle term, and that further kind of deteriorates people's interest in transit. So there's definitely a number of external forces at play affecting Metro and LADOT and all other municipal transit operators' ability to really deliver you the most excellent transit customer service experience. But I would pose that we all need to work together, with, including all of you in the room, with your patronage of the system and continued customer feedback to really move forward the changes that we need to see to increase that ridership.
I would add to that and provide some context as well in terms of the ridership decline. And as part of Metro's 10-year strategic plan, which is called Vision 2028, we have a plan for how to improve mobility in LA County. And so I encourage you to check it out if you're interested in how Metro is trying to tackle that with our partners. And part of it is recognizing that there's a supply and demand imbalance within our system. Because right now, a lot of the work that we're doing is addressing the supply side of transportation. The $120 billion of transportation investments that's happening over the next 40 years, one of the largest infrastructure improvement projects in the Western Hemisphere. That is going to take decades to build out. And as we look at how we plan for the future, because there's population growth, there's economic growth, there's all of these different pressures that are going to increase demand for travel within our system. How do we balance that against the demand and really address how do we make better use of our current transportation system? Because we can't widen the highways and keep on widening roadways, because you know what happens when we do that? It actually adds more congestion over time, because people see that the roadways are actually clear now, so I'm going to be able to drive my car. And so that's ultimately not what we want to do. And so we want to look at how can we balance and create a more efficient transportation system. And so we've done the supply side, we are building out the system, we are looking at how to improve bus services, but also we have to look at the demand for transportation. That's looking at market pricing and looking at other ways to address the demand side, so that people who can have the option to be able to travel at different times of day, we can balance out that system. As part of the strategic plan work that we did, we surveyed over 18,000 customers, and by customers, I mean anyone who lives, works, pays taxes in LA County, you're our customer. And so what we did was we surveyed both riders and non-riders, and what we heard is, yeah, we have an extensive bus system, but it's stuck in traffic, it's stuck in traffic lights, it takes a really long time to get anywhere because I have to transfer a lot. And if that's the case, can you imagine that if even low-income households, if they have the opportunity, why wouldn't they drive? Because then they can control their time, they can control their trip. And if that's the case, we have to look at how do we improve that system? How do we improve transit so that it is a great experience to be able to take it and it becomes the first thing that people think about in terms of
a choice for how to get around.
Awesome. I want to build on that. First, I want to say that the best part about their Vision 2028, the 10-year plan, is the appendices. You gotta read seriously. There's some incredible data in their appendices. You gotta check that out. It's a great read. This is what I do for a living. I read the appendices. So we at Move LA, we've been putting out positing a different theory about our decline in ridership, and it's we talk a lot about how, or we have in the last couple of weeks, I've been an avid listener to your podcast, and there's a lot of talk. She has a great podcast, by the way. She won't plug it. LA podcast. It's really, really good. Okay. But we've been talking a lot about how affordability is driving the homelessness crisis. But we've been doing a lot of digging, and we actually think that affordability is actually driving the decline in ridership. And here's the reason why. We've had, in the last 10 years, an increase in high-income households, those earning over $75,000 a year, of 300,000 households in just 10 years during the recession. We've had a decrease in low-income households under $75,000 a year. Do you want to guess how many? 200,000. Okay, and why is this significant? There's been a 50% increase in households earning over $150,000. This is significant because 90% of LA Metro's current ridership are low income, right? They're earning less than $25,000 a year. And so quite literally, the core ridership of our system is leaving the county. Now, they might be going to a different county in an empire or a different state, but we're losing our ridership because it's so expensive to live here.
Yes, let's talk about that. But even this week, Bill Washington, who's the CEO of Metro, is talking about this as if it's a completely normal thing that we could implement, within, they say by the Olympics is kind of the goal, but I think they could do it tomorrow. But the money that's recovered from fares is actually quite small when you look at it. So the numbers actually do work. So it's not like we're making tons of money off people riding, especially if few people are riding it, right? So this is actually a movement, and you can talk about this. This would be the ultimate equity move, right? If we can make it free.
We, to the big capital projects that you mentioned, I mean, we feel that we shouldn't be taking away from current riders. That we think it's inequitable that we're so focused on future ridership, these big capital projects that will happen in 20 years, when we also need to be thinking about the current ridership. And it turns out of a $7.2 billion budget that Metro just approved, only $280 million actually comes from what you pay in the fare box, right? The $1.75 that you pay when you tap your card, which is a drop in the bucket. It's so small compared to that huge budget. And Jessica Beanie from Investing in Place pointed out the other day that like nearly half of that is, nearly half of that amount, 140 million or so, right, goes to enforcement on the system, which is inherently inequitable, right? Because who are the people who are going to be jumping a fare? People who don't have the money to pay for a fare, right? And those are typically people who are, definitely people who are lower income, mostly people of color. And so not only are we paying for all this enforcement, not getting that much from the fare box, it's hurting the people that we need to help the most, right? People who have the least amount of money in this county and who are driving the ridership. So we have this real opportunity to kind of rethink the budget. It's all in these different pots of like, I've got my enforcement dollars, I've got my fare box dollars. We voted as voters to invest in the system. We're paying 1 cent, or 2 cents actually, out of every dollar from anything that we purchase towards the transportation system. Like, that's our investment. It should just be free for all of us. So that's what we're trying to build out.
Definitely. Freeways are more than highways. Freeways can be transit ways too. And that's what I think that, freeways are, let's co-opt that term and make it work for transit. Totally, it's a California thing, exactly. Let's do that. The ridership question, and so 2 things I want to say about that. One, car ownership, I want to address that, and also single family only zoning. I want to mention 2 things. Let's put that out there first. I think ridership is falling because car ownership is too easily accessible. I think I underscore the things that Karina mentioned about the various practices towards making car loans very, very cheap to be able to enter into car ownership. But also our system is designed, the streets are designed in a way that make car travel, like prioritizes car travel at all costs. I mean, even to the cost of human injury. I mean, it's the case of it's a very it's a downward spiral. But I think ridership will increase if we start to respect public transportation as a reliable service, as something that we use and we critique to make better. Who do we critique it to? The people that have decision power are your council people, particularly Metro Board, which is made up of 4 City of LA representatives, 5 county supervisors, and 4 LA city mayors, or council people, county mayors. And I think that transportation is a very political game, and if as a people we demand for streets that are different than what we currently have, we can definitely have that as a people. But I definitely think car ownership is too easy to achieve here in LA, and I think that we need to design a system, streets that are respectful of non-car ownership, people who don't choose to own a car or who can't own a car. And then on the topic of moving people closer to transit, I want to lift up that story from the New York Times yesterday that looked at the racialized aspect of single-family only zoning. It's very difficult to have these conversations, I realize, about race, because it kind of looks very introspectively at like our own biases. But I would love for that conversation to advance among this group of people, among very educated and non-educated folks as well, to look at what does single-family owning do. Single-family owning.
Explain what that is, if people don't know, and what the percentage of that is we're looking at for the city.
Yeah, so for City of LA, I think it's like 73% of our land or something like that is single-family only zoning. And basically what that is, it's a regulation that outlaws anything but single-family homes on land. And so if you think of a single-family home, it takes up like some piece of land. And it's in profusion. It basically has driven us apart from each other with lawns and parking spaces that send us apart from our own neighbors and keep us apart from one another. Whereas like buildings like what we're in right now and around us, on the extreme, of course, are much more conducive to interaction or just like serendipity of meeting people, of reducing the distance between which you need to travel, so that you don't need to travel other than just walk. Something I learned at one point was that LA does not need to become Manhattan for it to, provide all the environmental and equity benefits. Like if we just had 4 or 5 story buildings, a little bit more, around in our neighborhoods, it would look a little more like Paris, is what I heard, and less like Manhattan. But it would definitely curb our carbon emissions. It would solve a lot of inequities that we experience today. So single-family only zoning is definitely something I would encourage a little more dialogue on what is that, what are the consequences of that to us today and to the people that we're going to leave on this earth when we pass. And so I just want to raise that.
You said something about freeways, like maybe we need to rethink the term freeways. And I was immediately thinking of congestion pricing. Do you want to talk a little bit about congestion pricing I'm sure you guys all know because you're all really smart, but for people who don't know what it is, and how that actually could help create some of this equity that we've been talking about.
And so congestion pricing has been done in a lot of places across the world. And one of the models that's used in a lot of places is the idea of cordon pricing. So this is drawing an imaginary boundary around a central business area and charging vehicles as they cross that boundary. This is a model that has been implemented in London, Stockholm, Singapore, Milan, a lot of different areas across the world. And New York is going to be probably one of the first US cities to try that. Yes.
I like transit, I just don't want it on my street. And so we really, we can't, it's been sort of the MO for too long where I'm like, okay, we're not gonna do it.
Hey YouTubers, thanks for making it to the end of the video and for watching. It's always good to hear people in Los Angeles continuing this discussion on improving transportation here in the city. I would have liked to see, though, a little more acknowledgement of core issues with the system and why people might not be using it, specifically safety at night, cleanliness, as well as homelessness, which also is an issue that kind of pours over into the system. Would have loved to hear just an acknowledgement of those before making kind of the broader leaps into congestion pricing or even a free system for all. But hey, that's just what I think. Let me know what you think. Tag the part of the video that you liked, disliked, just have a comment on. And if you want to hear more local news as far as real estate, development, planning, what's going on in the city of Los Angeles and Southern California, subscribe using the links below.